Happy Labor Day to you, Scott Baker.
Labor Day indeed, and you and I are really not fully working today, but we are doing this, which is some labor here on Labor Day. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. The title of today's field note: "The need for closure can lead to faulty decisions." Immediately made me think of the fact that we brought a subject up 3 days ago or so. We were talking about something, and you said it's about closing loops, and you said it's the zig something, and I was like, oh, there's something out there. So I read up on the Zeigarnik effect.
Yes,
what it's called. And kind of fascinating little study back in the 20s, and I think it applies directly to it. So I don't know if whoever wrote this was listening to our conversation and was like, oh, that's interesting, and kind of wrote this one based upon the fact that we brought it up in the previous conversation. But
could be.
There's a strong connection here. We don't talk about the Zeigarnik effect necessarily in the field note, but it's all about what this is about. Closure for yourself.
So before Mikey unpacks what the Zeigarnik effect is, and I first learned about it more in a marketing context. So we'll look at what this effect is, because that effect itself has some very positive consequences, but it can have some negative consequences as well. And but the field note itself is about a very interesting application of this, which I don't think I intuitively would understand that it would be true, which is, well, sometimes leaders rush through decisions.
Right.
And maybe you want to attribute that to just we're decisive, we get things done. Or maybe it's, I've got all this stuff on my to-do list and I just have to kind of make a decision and go. Right. And this need for closure, right, this effect that drives the Zeigarnik effect, can lead to faulty decisions because it's rushing you along to complete something when that thing needs a little more time to bake, or it needs a little more ambiguity. And so it's a thing that leaders need to be aware of, because it, as the field note says, can consistently undermine the quality of your decisions. And I was like, oh, that's true, which is the amazing part of why field notes are so valuable and why we love doing Lead Better. And hopefully you guys enjoy it too, because you go, I'm not going to forget that now, I don't think.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to think that's true as well. I'm wondering, though, where is it that decisiveness as a character quality trait took on this outsized role as 50% of leadership is being decisive, right?
Yeah.
And so it might be saying, what people might be trying to imply is that making the decisions is what makes you a leader. But we talk about it in terms of decisiveness as if the speed that we make the decision, and with the willpower that we make the decision, and with our ability to ignore everybody else's complaints and go ahead and make the decision, is the thing that makes us the leader. But in any way that we describe decisiveness seems to kind of be a bit of a faulty way of thinking about leadership. So I don't know why decisiveness has taken on this outside role.
I guess when you would think about that, the thing that came to mind when you said it was, I thought, well, we sometimes see elevated the kinds of leadership where that might come into play more often, and that becomes something vivid and visual in our mind. We think about leaders in military movies, or in sport, in the moments of sports where the clock is ticking and a coach has to make a call or a player has to make a decision on the field. And so we think about those things. But the truth is that even in military and in war context, there's probably a lot more nuance, a lot more subtlety, a lot more we're going to have to wait. And I think that's it. And so in that process, I think we all live in this tension. We have this sort of part of us that wants to just procrastinate, and I'm not going to get through this, all the things on my list. And the other one's like, all right, I'm a leader. I'm just going to go and check things off and get it done. And that's how I know I'm a leader.
Yeah, I think some of it might even be caused by the way that we look at children interacting with each other. We have this tendency to want to pick out who the leader is early on when we're looking at a group of kids. And we see the kid who is the most bossy, and we think, oh, there's some real leadership potential.
Yes, right.
There. But that's not really leadership potential, right?
Yeah.
Because if you continue to act that way as you get older and older,
you
become ostracized, and no one wants to hang around you.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
I think this thing of decisiveness might kind of be the same way. We see a kid who is able to stand up and clearly make a decision and know what they want and feel like, oh, that's going to take them very far in life. but when you
It
think
does,
of,
right.
yeah, decisiveness extrapolated in the way that we see it's done with kids actually leads to a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that dominance and control factor kind
Right.
of doesn't go that far. So, well, here's a thing to kind of unpack then. So, if we look at this idea that what we're trying to get to is not necessarily decisiveness or indecision, what you're trying to get to is a quality decision.
Right.
Well, then what we know is that when do we make bad decisions? Usually, it's when we made a decision too soon.
Yeah.
It's when we made a decision because there was something we didn't know yet.
Yeah, that's really it.
Yeah.
Like there was a missing piece of information, and if I had just waited a little bit for that missing piece to come, there would have been a whole lot more clarity for me to make a better decision, right?
Yeah.
So I think most of the regret that people have about decision making is not having that missing piece of information. So,
Yeah. Now, I think, and I'm going to ask you to unpack the Zeigarnik effect from your research, here in the last couple of days. But the thing that's interesting is, I think, would generally be coaching top leaders, and our top coaches do, that there are moments and there are times when you need to make a quick decision, or if it's clear and there's that situation. Sometimes we procrastinate around stuff that's just obvious. I do this all the time, where I'll be thinking about something. And maybe, to be kind to myself, maybe I'm kind of getting myself ready for that decision, and it just takes a little time. But I know so often I'm like, well, this was clear 3 months ago, right? Why did I putter around on this issue when you just gotta go, right?
Right.
But most of the time we're saying, well, you want to emphasize optionality, and good leaders always have optionality. And that's the thing, is when you look at a good athlete or a good military leader, the ones that I was saying cause us to think that fast decisions, make the decision, they're always looking for plan A, plan B, plan C, and kind of working out all of the different equations there. And so at that point, you kind of got to know, let me see when this loop has to close, right? Because there's no way that you're going to get rid of this Zeigarnik effect, which is this psychological drive that you just can't leave an open loop.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I've heard it described as if, if I should probably not sing, but if you were to say,
now you've opened a loop that we all need closed.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mary had a little lamb, little.
Right. Exactly.
Like your mind just goes, you gotta finish that. That's just, by the way, my shirt just says heavy duty, old school, and then below that says truth. I don't usually wear like t-shirts with words on them, but
right.
We're hitting it today, right?
That's just another example. Everyone wanted to know what the last word on your shirt was, so you had to close that loop for everyone.
Heavy duty, old school, truth. Yeah. Right. So now, with that said, I think if we understood a little bit more about the Zeigarnik effect, which is not, it is described in this field note, but not elucidated, it would probably help us sort of make sure that this thing has traction with us. So what else did you learn from this 100-year-ago study?
Yeah, so it was 1927, so we're just at the cusp of 100 years of when it took place. But Bluma-Zeigarnik, old Soviet study that was done. So it's interesting. You got to think about the time and place that this study was taking shape. There weren't a whole lot of competing schools that were doing peer-reviewed studies of things that were published in journals.
Sure.
Right? So the ability to have your stuff read, your stuff repeated, your stuff reviewed in such a way that it wasn't at the shape that we are in science today. And so when this thing was released and written about, it was mainly done with a study about memory. It says, well, let me set people up in the middle of a task. And then when I interrupt the task, I will quiz them about some of the details of the task, versus I'm going to set people up with a task and allow them to do it to completion. And then I'm going to quiz them based upon what it is that they've just completed, and see where their memory is able to be best demonstrated during being the interruption of a task or at the end of the completion of a task. So all she was really studying was a person's memory. The application might only work, therefore, when it's like, how do I cram for a test, right? because it was a very specific
In that
kind
part of that
thing.
application. Yeah.
Yeah. And so because there was nobody around who was like, actually, let's repeat this study to see whether or not the Zeigarnik effect would apply to like task closure.
Sure.
Like my ability to remember things is not the only thing that we're often talking about with closure. As a matter of fact, the word closure in this day and age for us, you know, in the modern world, has taken on a completely different meaning. When we think about closure, most of the time we're thinking about this psychological thing of like, I've got grief, I don't know who, I'm just pulling from the Hollywood headlines. I don't know who killed my dad. And so until I know who
Yes,
it
right.
was that
Yeah.
murdered my father, I'm going to need that closure. Like that's where the word is used more often than not. And if we're trying to, you know, say, well, you know, the Zeigarnik effect was just about closing loops. So it's also the closing loops of, you know, figuring out who killed my family member, right?
Yeah, right. And sometimes, by the way, some movies intentionally are trying to not exactly do it, but they leave the ending ambiguous, and we're all like,
yes,
wait a minute, what's going on here?
And that's the problem with it, because I was thinking back of like, well, what are the things where I remember the things in the most vivid ways? And for me, the things that I've sat 10,000 hours on, I haven't watched 10,000 movies yet, but as a kid growing up, I listened to 3 to 4 sermons a week, right?
The baked into you. Yeah.
Baked in. And so I'm trying to think, what were the sermons that were the most memorable to me? Because that's where my 10,000 hours really was.
Sure.
And those sermons that were preached in an inductive way,
interesting,
instead of a deductive way, were the ones that they got me going, where the preacher, as they were talking, would open up questions and make me wonder along with them.
Right. Correct.
Right. Yeah. Instead of because most of the sermons I heard were deductive. They would state the fact, then they would support the material with, you know, the references that they were going to, and then they would point number 2, and they would do it like a Roman numeral AB 1, 2, 3, Roman numeral A 1, 2, 3, right? And so that's deductive. Inductive is like, let me start with the supporting material that doesn't make sense to anyone, and just opens a question. And then we're going to unpack that for 30 minutes. And then we'll finally get, so that way of like not closing a loop for 30 minutes and then finally allowing it to be closed.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Those were the most memorable messages for me.
No doubt. Right? Yeah.
And so,
go ahead and finish the thought.
Yeah. So like, if all we're talking about is memory, right? How to like root into my brain, why it is that murder mysteries are things that come up to my, like with closure, then I don't know that it has enough effect for me. Like I don't know that it's good enough to say like I need to incorporate the positive nature of the Zeigarnik effect in everything that I'm doing. Maybe for studying for a test, maybe for committing things to memory, but that might be the limit of where we should be using it.
Well, I think you could say you can use this as the communicator. Right. Yeah. So as you just demonstrated, whether you're someone giving a sermon in a church or a lecture in a classroom, or if you're a marketer with a message, and that's where I encountered it in marketing literature, where people talk about the Zeigarnik effect, which is, you know, if I'm targeting a particular kind of client or customer, and you know, that's sort of a hero's journey in its own right. And if I have some expertise, some authority, some empathy, and I'm saying, hey, I've got a plan for you, right? I'm kind of the guru saying, kind of, I'm calling to you into a new direction. And I can say, what I see is this, this, and this, and there's going to be 3 simple steps that are going to take you from here to here to here. Join me on this trip. Well, now I've created this curiosity in you about, well, what are those 3 steps?
Right.
Can I actually do those 3 steps? Can this person actually help me? And if I reject the offer, right, then what am I left with? Like I could say, and have, well, we have field notes every day that have great insights, you know, for free, and it's good advice. But we also have a whole full catalog of admired leader behaviors that you can be part of, for a fee, and you can get, a very high investment in one-on-one coaching that will begin to give you access to a whole world of the behaviors of the very best leaders.
Right.
Now, many people won't do that, but I know when I was first presented with this idea, so I want to know those things.
Yes.
And that's that's how I came to Admired Leadership. I hired the founder of Admired Leadership to coach me. I hired him personally because I wanted to know those things. I couldn't stand living with that loop not closed. Now, the point of the field note is not a marketing thing. So the idea is understand the human nature in yourself as a leader, that you can, by the way, as a leader, say, to your team, to your organization, to your customers and clients, if you're marketing to them, you can create these pathways that make us say, I want to see how that ends.
Sure.
But understand that in your own decision making, your own psychology is saying, finish that loop, close it off, let's get it, let's decide, let's move on. And a lot of times, if it's clear enough, that's good. But you'll know, I kind of want to, this one probably does need to bake. And the fact that I just want to get it off of my desk is not a good enough reason to make the decision and shove it off. You may need to kind of wait for that right moment to make a better quality decision.
Right. So you're bringing up marketers. And so we can't help but think about Don Draper, the archetype marketer.
Right. Sure enough.
Right. And a lot of people watch it not realizing that Don Draper's kind of the villain, right?
Yes, right. Yeah.
He's not necessarily, he might be the one going on the hero's journey, but he ends up in a place where he doesn't actually complete the hero cycle himself. Mm-hmm. So all that to say, like, if you're saying, let's use the Zeigarnik effect in marketing, I understand that it could be effective, but it just makes me think dirty marketers and their silly tricks again. Right. But in a lot of ways, that's the point of the field note is right. If you're susceptible to wanting to close loops, you're going to be making bad decisions because of it, including ones that marketers present to you when they're saying, don't you want to figure out what is going to make you happy for the rest of your life? Right. And it's like,
well, look, here's the thing. And you're right. But the Don Draper story in that sense, it's not for him that he ends up in the better place, right, of that loop. That's why the story can be a tragedy, right? Yeah. If in the sense of an arc that's taking you to some place where the story does complete, because people have choices to take the pattern that takes them in the right direction or the pattern that takes them in the wrong direction. And actually, as consumers of stories, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the completion of which character is moving in the right pattern and which character is moving in the wrong pattern. And that's why we yell at the screen, don't do that.
Yes.
I mean, it's easy enough to say, don't open the door in the basement. But we also know when you're saying, that's the wrong person. Don't get married to her. Don't cut that deal. Whatever the thing is, you walk away and you're screaming at them and they don't, and when you see it completed. Well, the same thing happens. There are unethical marketers always, right? But I actually want, this would be kind of a Seth Godin thing, which is if you're a permission marketer, which is establish the trust that people say, I want to hear everything that you have that could help me. Well, then I want you to do your best job to intrigue me about why I should be interested in that thing. Yes. And so I want people, whether they are giving the lecture or the sermon or creating the YouTube video, to be saying, I'm going to take you on a ride. And the fulfillment of that is it very satisfying when I get there? Did it actually add to my insight, to my ability to see the world in a more clear way? Did it motivate me? And then the completion of that loop is not something that I would like, oh, you clever marketer. I'm looking all the time for things to pay off. Right. Oh, you think that this pair of shoes is going to help me in my workouts. I want to hear why. Like, I want to see, and might try a pair. Well, this loop didn't close in the right way, right? Yeah. But I want to see where it goes. So just understand from the field note that you, as a human being making decisions as a leader, your mind is saying, got to complete the loop, the loop. So just kind of be ready to tap the brakes a little bit.
It happens everywhere. Even I have something else to say about Don Draper, but I wanted you to be able to get all the way through your thought. And so even in the way that we have conversations.
What if we ended it just right now?
I'll have the tendency to not even complete my.
No, go ahead. I'm ready. I really want to know.
I'm not listening to you properly because I'm ready to
You're waiting to finish. I thought you were done with the Don Draper. I would have let you finish the story, but go ahead. Now I want to know.
My only thought, at the end of Mad Men, when Don Draper goes off to that commune, right? And we're celebrating the idea that finally he's gonna find himself and not be involved with the rat race and everything. And then that little jingle runs, implying that Don Draper was the one who wrote the Coca-Cola commercial.
Right.
So the implication is he went back to Madison Avenue and kept on doing his thing. right?
Yeah, he took a beautiful metaphysical insight and made it just
Yes.
a tool of marketing.
Yes, right. And so Don Draper never learned his lesson. Like,
Yeah.
so that's the sad story about it. But they left it open as if to say, maybe Don Draper did go off into the sunset as a peaceful hippie, right? He did not, right? Maybe he did.
We don't know,
He
right?
didn't. No. Somebody wrote the Coke commercial. It had to be Don Draper.
That Coke commercial has brought joy to many people around the world for many decades.
It's brought diabetes to many people around the world.
That could be another way of looking at it. So, all right. Have we done I think we've completed our task here for Labor Day.
Yeah, no, I think so too. This is a good one. Thank you very much for your time.
What will we have to say tomorrow at 3:00 Eastern time?
I haven't seen it yet. Have you seen it?
Oh yeah, actually, I will give you. I have seen it. It is. Here's your sneak preview. The headline for tomorrow's field note and tomorrow's lead better. The difference between motivation and inspiration and why it matters.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Good one.
We often talk about those interchangeably. Great.
Yep.
Nice. All right.
See you, Mike.